Hi, welcome to another Face Reading Caricature. Today I'm going to be doing Andrew Neil. I guess I decided to do him this week to celebrate the launch of GB News, which is his kind of attempt at rivaling Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. According to all the reviews, it's been doing extremely badly. It's been overrun with a lot of technical errors. The reviews have been dreadful. So I thought, to celebrate, let's try and find out a little bit about the brains behind the operation. So this is Andrew Neil. Most of us know him from the BBC. He left recently after being promised his own show. And then he said he had to leave with a heavy heart because, well, the BBC reported that he left with a heavy heart because they didn't have the money to employ him anymore. Partly because of the very government that he supports himself are making cuts to the BBC. But he also told the Express that the damage was done and he hates the BBC, and this is kind of his way, I suppose, of getting his revenge. He's launching his own rival channel to sort of challenge the BBC. He's also kind of launching it, I think, because he wants to get his revenge, I suppose, on Rupert Murdoch, who sacked him as editor of the Sunday Times in 1994 because Andrew Neil ran a story about corruption in the Malaysian government, which upset Rupert because he wanted to buy some television stations over there. So they've kind of had a falling out since then. So I'm suspecting GB News is kind of his revenge on the BBC and his revenge on Rupert Murdoch. This is probably something that's been going on in his brain for years, and he's only just kind of actualised it. So we'll see. Let's find out a little bit about what's going on. So the first things, he's got, I think, quite an unhealthy looking face, and it's not just because he's overweight. We've got this line here over the bridge of the nose is a sign that someone needs to pay attention to their diet. Apparently, if you're not making good chi energy from the food you're eating, like I'm eating basically unhealthily, it exhausts the body. There's a few other things here. These big lines down the side of his mouth are called disappointment lines. And so this is someone we kind of know, I suppose, from his history of Rupert Murdoch and the BBC, that he's lived a life where he's felt disappointed. He bears those kind of grudges. Also, actually, in correspondence with this line above the nose, we've got this kind of one just above the chin. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit. This is a sign. People normally get this line apparently when they're in their 50s, but although some people do get it a lot sooner, and it's a sign that the body is wanting to retire. The body is kind of exhausted, and it's a sign that you should be kind of putting your energy perhaps not so much into work. You should be thinking about retiring. Now we know Andrew Neil is 72, I believe. I should check that, but he's about 72 years old, so he's kind of over retirement age, but he's just launched a TV station, so this could be a sign that he needs to slow down a little bit. And we can kind of also see it, the fact he's got quite a saggy face. Now some people, when they put on weight on their face, it can be seen as a good sign. I decided to use Jonah Hill as an example. Here's a guy who got a lot of weight on his face, but he still carries the shape on the face, and this was kind of seen as good. He hasn't got a saggy face, you know. Although he's carrying a lot of extra flesh, it was seen as a good thing because it was seen as a sign of someone that could provide for themselves. And as long as the skin was kind of attached to the bone of the jaw, having a kind of fuller face was a positive sign. Whereas on Andrew Neil, it's sagging. It's not like a fuller face. And this was referred to as floating flesh. It wasn't tied to the bone. It's just basically saggy skin. So this is another sign of exhaustion. Saggy kind of skin. This line above the chin. This one here. You know, he's not eating properly. He's exhausted. His face is sagging. So we got a lot of lines kind of showing that he's in need of retiring. He's perhaps someone that should kind of slow down a little bit. We also have this line here. This is called the suspended needle. Sometimes it's called, if it's a bit bigger than this, it's called suspended dagger, and if it's very large, it's called a suspended sword. But here, I guess you could call this the needle. This is a sign of somebody who goes off in a different path to his parents. He goes off, and I know his dad worked he was in the Territorial Army, and he worked as a fireman or something. He's gone in a different direction to his parents. It can also mean that he's carrying around a lot of anger, and that he's not using the inherited qualities of his parents. This whole top half of the head, the Chinese called the Palace of Inheritance, and the bottom half was called the Palace of Immortality. Now this Palace of Inheritance, we inherit all the qualities from our parents, good and bad, and if we have this kind of line, it means it's divided. There's a blockage. We're not using the talents of our parents or the qualities of our parents, because basically there's no good or bad. You might look at your parents and think, well, I don't get any talents from them, or I didn't like them or anything. But the thing is, all qualities, whatever we've inherited from our parents, it is ours to choose the meaning of. So even if you've got a bad-tempered parent and you don't want that as a quality, you can deny it to yourself. But really, sometimes anger can actually be a good thing if it's used to fuel pursuing good causes, or if it's a sign you're defending other people using anger. So anything that you've inherited from your parents, you can actually use positively. And if you fight against that, or you don't use those qualities, that's what this line is all about. So this is the Palace of Inheritance up at the top. At the bottom, the Palace of Immortality. How do we become immortal? For most of us, it's by having children. That's how we live on beyond the life of our own bodies. And we normally have a philtrum here. Now he doesn't, and there's another thing I noticed here actually. There we go, we see all the lines still. He hasn't really got much of a philtrum, and he's actually got this line here. So the philtrum kind of indicates how fertile we are, and any kind of weird markings here is a sign that we probably won't have children, or we're going to have trouble reproducing. Andrew Neil is 72 years old, he doesn't have children, so it's interesting to have this line here. This line can also mean that one of the reasons you haven't had children, it can be by choice, but it could also be because you're putting too much effort into other endeavours. So he works hard because he's 72 years old and he's just launched a whole TV station. So this is kind of where he's put his energy. He's very much someone who's dedicated to work, and that's perhaps cost him not having children. I don't know if this is a regret of his, but it's interesting how those markings do kind of align with that. Next we've got these ears. He's got very high ears, which is actually a sign of someone it's a sign of intelligence. It's also a sign of somebody who found their path in life very early on. Most of us, when you're caricaturing, let me just have a... So if this is our face, and we put our eyes here, and our nose and our mouth, our ears are normally between our eyebrows and our nose. So if our eyebrows are here, our ears are normally here. Somebody who's very intelligent, or who chose their path early in life, will have ears that are kind of a bit further up, a bit bigger and a bit further up, which is what he's got. It means that when he was in his 20s, he was basically on the path that he is now. He found his path in life and he's kind of stuck to it. So I've got some basic kind of outline of him here. Like I said, we've got the ears that sort of stick out. The pudginess of the face, I'm going to have to exaggerate that because he has a lot more weight around here than I've really given him credit for. Oh, the cleft chin that we can see here, he's got a very distinct cleft chin. This is someone who likes to perform. If you think about people like George Clooney, it's considered like an actor's chin. Both men and women get it. It's mainly men that get it, but women have it as well, especially if they're performers, or they like having being in front of an audience, which he clearly does with Andrew Neil. Very tiny little eyes. Oh, another thing is the lips. Yeah, there aren't any, basically, so there's nothing to read. He has not got any lips. Sign of someone who's very repressed emotionally. It's not just that he's holding them tightly together, it's like he literally doesn't seem to have lips. They're very, very thin. This is someone who's not at all in touch with his emotional side. He's very much in this area, in this sort of the thinking area. He's got quite a big nose, big sort of fleshy pudgy sort of nose. So let's get all the line work done and see where we end up with this. So there we have it. So there's our Andrew Neil there, quick caricature. While I was doing the line work, it occurred to me who he reminds me of, and I've just had a quick Google search. He reminds me of Slimer from Ghostbusters. He's got that same kind of... We were talking about the sort of sagginess of the flesh and everything. The only thing I noticed with Slimer that's kind of to his advantage is he's actually got quite a well-developed philtrum area around here, which Andrew Neil doesn't have. So Slimer could be potentially more likely to have offspring in his later life, whereas Andrew Neil doesn't have that at all in his area. So I guess that's the main difference between Andrew Neil and Slimer. If we've learnt anything today, then that is a lesson we can walk away with. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it in some way interesting. If you've got any suggestions for future face reading caricatures, please leave them in the comments. Like the video, hate the video, or subscribe to the channel. It's up to you. We're under no obligation here. This is a free country. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.